Alright, are we here? Let me do one thing. I'm just going to go ahead and... So, Game Maker had a new release recently. Let's make sure we're live and everything is going fine. Because this segment I actually will probably take out and make its own little video. But today, what we're going to be talking a little bit about, and I'm going to move the camera actually down here so my face isn't really too much in the way of what we're going to be doing right now. What we're going to do is we're going to look at the topic of creating demos. Now, if you are doing something for a game jam, this just applies right off the bat, and this is something you're going to want to do right off the bat. And to some extent, it was something we did with the design documentation. If you remember earlier, it should be right here. If you look at all this, there's a whole lot in here. And there's more that's still going to be added, obviously. Like we need to figure out how the time system's going to work, which we're going to implement the turn system today. So a lot of the stuff that was handled manually, now going to be handled by the game itself. So, for demos, there's a few things that you need to keep in mind. Number one is a concept that you will often hear in the industry, and this is something you're going to want to get right on top of if you're doing a jam, and that is, what is your MVP, or minimum viable product? With this term, pretty much what it is what do you need to show people this is the game, this is what makes it unique, this is why you should be interested. Minimum viable product is a fairly universally used term. You'll see it anywhere from very higher up game developers to even indie devs usually will acknowledge minimum viable product is important for testing things out. And that's kind of been what we're working on right now. The graphics were kind of just there as a distraction, but this is the real meat and potatoes, if you will. Now, granted, let's talk about the key concept of what we're talking about today, demos. So what a demo basically is it's short for the word demonstration. So a demo for a game or any piece of software is view it like if you go to someone's house at a party, view it as the plate of appetizers. So it's not really a full course meal of the game, it's more so a small sample platter of what the game has to offer. Whether it be based on story, gameplay, what have you, it's designed to show, hey, this is why you will be interested in our product. And there are multiple ways that you see demos released. Usually people use the term, you have your alpha builds, which those are your first builds. Beta is, it's near finalization. We're still testing out for bugs and all that. And then you hit kind of your finalized builds, and with each of those version number resets. But that's not really important to what we're going to be discussing today. What's important is, how do you make a good demo? And really, I think there are three approaches that I like to talk about. One of these is more so a me thing, but the other two are ones that I've seen done and done fairly well. First is what I like to call I had terms written down somewhere. Check through, I have the notes on my phone, give me a second. Yep. First one is what I like to call an episode demo. And let me just get a drink because I'm mostly well, but still have COVID, so my throat has been a little bit sore. That is one of the most important parts, is you need to make sure to keep yourself healthy. Alright. But, with all that being said, sorry, just wanted to go get some water because kind of needed that for this segment. But episode-style demos, these are short segments of your story. So, for example, game that immediately comes to mind is Anno Mutatianum did this, where it is a very short demo that covers, I want to say, the first chapter of the game. So it's very short. It's very simple. Pretty much all they had to do was make sure to provide lockouts so you can't go beyond a certain point. But it's a pretty decent way to do a demo, especially if story is your main thing. Usually that's a good way to go about it. However, there are two more that I've seen done. Number 2 is what I like to call the that's what it was called. I want to say corral. It's what was the term I used? Buffet. That's the the buffet style. So buffet demos are demos where they take maybe a few segments of the game if it's a larger game, but more likely than not, what a buffet demo is going to do is a buffet demo will take some aspects of the game. Unlike the episodic demo, it's not going to be one short segment. So say you have a fighting game, and the buffet style demo for, let's just say, the next Street Fighter, we have 26 characters, and we want to release a short demo of it. We're not going to have all 26 playable, probably only going to have maybe 6, 7, or make it a short time online version of the game. A lot of games do that nowadays, like Splatoon has the test fires. I want to say Call of Duty does something like that, but I'm not that familiar with that series, so I wouldn't know. But but buffet-style demos are exactly that. It's pretty much just you get a taste of the gameplay, not in a segment, but more so in quick sessions, where it's a quick bite of gameplay. Like if you're just playing, if you're at an event with Capcom and you get to play a Street Fighter demo, you're not going to get to know everything about how Ryu plays in this game just because you played Ryu once. But you will be able to get a generalized idea of, oh, this is how Ryu will feel different from Ryu in previous games. And then there's the one that I usually like to push people to go for, which is a term I have coined, arcadification. Now, this one is probably going to redline. It did not. I will take that as a win. Arcadification as a term is a very simple concept, I feel. So for those of you who are familiar with old arcade games like Galaga, like Pac-Man, the appeal of those games is they are short, fairly simple, but infinitely replayable. I can explain games like Pac-Man, Tetris, Galaga fairly simplistically. And the thing is, what makes those games so beloved is because they're simple to pick up and play, and by their nature, there is no inherent end. And yes, I know that there is the glitch in Pac-Man if you go far enough up in levels, but when I say arcadification, what I'm talking about is that fairly continuous gameplay experience. So, for example, if we were to look at, I think one example that I made earlier was with a project I was working on that was more so like a beat-em-up or fighting game. What I did, because I wanted to make it a fighting game Metroidvania combination, was I took that concept and I made it a short one-room beat-em-up, where enemies keep coming at you and it's high score based to see how many enemies you can kill before you die. And that gives the player room to experiment with movement, and me room to kind of take notes, see what people are doing. And with gameplay, the reason arcadification is beneficial is if your gameplay is with arcadification, since it is high score based and designed to be kind of replayable to some extent, you need to focus on making that gameplay really, really engaging. Because that is what I feel is the core to somewhat of almost every game. Now, I'm not going to completely say that gameplay is always paramount to a game being great, but I will say the engagement of the player with the gameplay is paramount. For example, with, engagement of the player with the game overall doesn't necessarily have to be with the gameplay. Visual novels are a good example of that. So, like, Ace Attorney. Gameplay in that is not too complicated. There's not a whole lot you're doing, but it does serve the purpose of that game well. You couldn't really arcadeify it, but you could definitely episode it. Or something like a lot of multiplayer games usually go for the buffet option, because that way your core audience gets to try it out, and you get to see feedback from it. Arcadification more so is a good way to test if your core gameplay is engaging, particularly if you're aiming for more so a, I guess, best way I can put it is demos and is episodes and buffet options are best for things like platformers or anything where it's you very much don't have gameplay that is designed for anything too simplistic. Arcadification works for things like beat 'em ups. It works for things like, to some extent, what we are working with here is heavily system based. If it's heavily system based, maybe arcadification is the way you should test it out, because that way what you can do is you can kind of have and I'll go ahead and give you the idea of what I'm thinking about for this. Since Chorus Symphonis 2 is going to be, Chorus Symphonis Reprise is going to be heavily based off of the elemental combination mechanics and interplay, I feel like what I want to do is make a horde mode, because that would be fairly easy to do. You just have to code the enemies and place an object to spawn them in, which that does not take long to do. And you have to make sure both characters have decent amount of their mechanics in. It gives me an area where I can go and test out the mechanics I make, but it also gives me an area where I can say, hey, if I want to take this to a local convention and put this up on a booth, or hey, I have a few friends coming over and they're curious about how it's going, how the game is coming along. If I want to show them stuff that is not that main campaign, because that's going to probably be the bulk of the work. You want to kind of front end most of your coding. You want, you want to still bug test and code more when needed, but you want to front end a lot of this boring infrastructure work for that very reason. And arcadification, I feel, really helps with that. It's the same reason why I feel a lot of jam games are, if you look at their origins, the idea is what's core to it. So, like, one game that I absolutely love, if you are not familiar with, and I feel exemplifies this perfectly, Baba Is You. So, if you are not familiar with what this game is, it's a puzzle game, fairly simplistic art style, basically a block pusher combined with logic puzzlers, and it'll probably get a video eventually. I really love this game. That's some good water. Anyway, the reason I'm mentioning this is if you look at this game on the surface, it's very clear they just focus on what is essential. They have the stuff you need to win and the stuff you need to make decisions, but that's literally it. There's not a lot of fluff, not a lot of filler. It's just straight to the point. And with Baba Is You, what I mean by it's kind of arcadey, is, well, it mixes two of these styles. It mixes the episode and arcadification style, because episode also applies to things like levels or, well, you can combine episode and buffet style to some extent. It could be a buffet of episodes, but what I think is the key here is arcadification. This one's more so an early thing. This is something that I usually do to make sure that gameplay is tight, to make sure that it feels right. Because if you make a demo where there's not a lot of actual push or motivation, but the gameplay is making people say, oh, this is fun, I want to keep trying this, then yeah, I think you're getting somewhere. But let's talk about what we're probably going to need for this demo. And I would say let's start by making two lists. We're going to have a need list, and then we're going to have a maybe list. So on our need list, this is things we definitely need. So let's start with what we're going to do today. Turn-based system. Wait, I'm going to actually turn on the bullet points really quickly. Usually I use Microsoft Word, but since Google Docs is where I do most of the Core Symphonia stuff, I feel like this would be a little better to do. So, turn-based system. We need enemy AI coded. We need to implement weapons, implement harmonic chemistry. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to go ahead and list 3 or 4 of them that I think we're going to go ahead and use. So, we already have Steam in there, so let's just keep Steam in there. And I want to say we can go ahead and add, you know, yeah, let's do electrified. And we're going to add wind in here as well. That way with the wind, the reason that one is being listed separately is because with wind, that's an AoE. So I'm just going to put a little note here for myself later, AoE. There we go. So for maybes, we're going to put some stuff right here. And this will be things like particle effects, I would say we could also put in something. Well, actually, let's go ahead and go under implement weapons before I forget. So for let's just make 2 lists here: chorus, Symphonia. For Symphonia, I want her dagger and the small shield. And for chorus, since it's going to be key to some later stuff in gameplay, sword and gun. As well as, let's go ahead and put in melee, question mark. All right. Enemy AI coded. So for enemy AI, we need to make sure they know when to be aggressive, when to retreat. Well, excuse me, not when to retreat, when to be aggressive, when to hide, and they need to be able to see and react to player. What we might work on there is the alert system. So yeah, let's put enemy alert level. That's just what I'm going to throw up there. Environmental elements. Oh, yeah, right here. Menu system. And for the options, I'm going to go ahead and list them right here. We need to give it an attack. Yeah, I have them listed here. Actually, you know what? For menu, I like the idea that we have, we map it to the face buttons after you move the character. So, since I'm using Switch controllers, I'm just going to map them like this. Y, ATK, actually, yeah, menu system. Maybe we should just go ahead and put this here, because we shouldn't decide how they'll be mapped until we get a better idea. So attack, guard, equip, bag, attack, guard, harmonics, bag, and this is going to have the item, equip, and store. Elements. And then we have guard. So, wait, already put guard in there. All right. And then we have, I say, let's put move, question mark. And then also for a need, actually put it under maybe. Actually, no, it's need. Because I decided kind of off camera. What I want to do with this game is I want to make it very much incentivize multiplayer. Because I feel like with the core message of the Core Symphonis series, multiplayer would fit very well. I'm going to take some cold medication. Sorry, I'm still... Remember, kids, if you're gonna use cold medication, make sure you actually have a cold. Ugh. All right. Let's just leave it at that for now and get into the actual thing that we're going to do this video, and that's we're focusing on the turn-based system. So, in our objects folder, we have OMaster. And I'm going to create a new object in here. And I'm going to call this one O game roll. This object will be persistent and invisible. And let's go ahead and put a few different codes in here. Upon creation, it's going to have a few switches. And I'm going to make one global switch. Now, what a global switch is compared to a normal switch, a global switch, when it's switched on and off, that is across every single item within the game. Like a global variable. Excuse me, global variable or switch. A global variable is good for if you want to have a variable where it's only X or Y can do this. Or you have a specific variable that you want to apply to everything. So, unlike with our standard variables, if I were to have two instances of, let's just say, let's just put 2 fire objects. Actually, you know what I should do? Let's see if I have a... Yeah, I can just open paint.net and do this. Paint.net, everybody. But let's say that we have an object over here. Yeah, let's just use Calibri. And I'm gonna set it a little bigger. Object over here, and an object over here. If it is a standard variable, this one, if let's say I set a variable like apples to change, and I gave this one, and this one has 1 apple, and this one grabs an apple. Now it has 2. That is what a standard variable works like. It does not go between instances of the same object. However, with a global variable, let's say grapes in this case. So if grapes are global, that means that grapes always across every single instance will equal the same thing. So if grapes equals 3, it's going to equal 3 across all of them. Or at least, if I remember correctly, that should be how it works. I'm not an expert with Game Maker, but if I remember correctly, that should be how it works. So, global dot turn equals 1. So it's going to equal 1 on creation. Actually, let's do it like this. Equals 0. That way, since we're testing out the turn system, so how this is going to work is I'm going to add another event right here. Let me do one thing while I'm thinking about it. So if we go back to this room, I'm going to go ahead and, before I forget, game rules goes right there. Oh, what's the object down there? center, system, HUD, camera. All right. I'm going to also set all of these to be spawned by game rules, so we can make a array listing of pretty much all the objects it's going to spawn with it. That way, whenever game starts up, it's just going to it will know what to do. But we look at game rules here. What we're going to do is go to the controller object, and we're going to, oh shoot, yeah, I have these open here. Here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and close these so I can do something really quickly. You open both of these like that, you can just have them both in one window, and that's probably, yeah, close S water. I'm just closing a lot of the stuff we don't need right now, just so we kind of have some room to work with. Workspace 1's going to go right there. Harmonics, we don't really need to worry about today, and S-Fire, don't need to worry about today. So, that's our controller, and then let's go over to game rules here. And we're going to add a few events. I'm going to add some events to it later, but for right now, let's check something here. It's going to find all instances of can underscore control. Character ID equals char number. And global dot turn equals 1. So that way we can only control if it, see if global turn equals 2. So if my calculations are correct, watch. I'm pressing the buttons, not allowing me to control them. However, if I set the turn timer here to 1, I can control them again. All right. I'm going to do one more thing while I'm thinking about it. If I go to Symphonia, is she set to be solid? Yeah, since they don't use the in-game physics system, I think sometimes you just need to mess with... I'll figure it out later. But let's go ahead and... Gonna make an outline for this so I know where it is. Enemy code. If place meeting. And global.turn equals 2. So if it's turn 2, then it's going to go to the enemy turn. And now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go over to our turn timer. Excuse me, I'm going to go over to game rules here. And this is where we're going to get a little more interesting. Step. Well, actually, no, we do this player side, excuse me. We're going to have to actually do one thing with the controller code really quickly. So let's go back into here. So, we need to code attacks. Usually, I find the best way to do this is to actually make attacks their own object. So we're going to create an object here called attacks. And we need to actually make a sprite for this so I can do this. So, edit image. And I'm just going to kind of do something basic here. Just enough that we can kind of tell what it is. And let's set this one to go at 15 FPS and see how that looks. Yeah, that'll just be our base attack for now. Granted, I know some people are going to Oh, hey Josh. So I'm developing a top-down mix between a strategy and action game. Remake of my first project I developed, actually. Sorry, I don't usually get a lot of action in the live chat, so I need to get in a better habit of looking at it. But yeah, right now, with this attack, what we want to do is we want to make sure we actually have a hitbox here. Let's check the collision mask really quickly. Yeah, that's about fine. So, actually, I want to do one thing. I'm going to go ahead and move this center to... Should have it. Origin right here. It should be in the... I want to say it's middle left. Yeah, and then if we take that and we just kind of... it doesn't let you just use keyboard. That's great. There we go. 1332. There, that'll work fine for what we're doing here. But if we go over into the controller, what we can actually do... boy, that's some good water. What we can do in the controller here is I'm going to add a code under here. Let's start with making key underscore ATK equals... Let's see what buttons we already have. So it's going to... It uses the keyboard right here. Let's just say the space bar. Spacebar. Keyboard underscore check. Pressed. VK underscore space. There we go. So that's going to check when we press that key down. And then it should be right here. This is collision. Enemy code is right here. We can go ahead and minimize that for now. Character selection, and then there should be some code right here. If we go, let me see here. Place meeting. Harmonics. If can control. If place meeting, yeah, that's collision. If key harmonics. And then if key underscore ATK instance create layer X, Y, let's just do instances O attacks variable structure, we don't need to worry about that. And boom, that is now in there. So if we select our character and then we press space, as you can see, it creates an attack there. We're going to eventually need to edit where this attack goes, and I'm probably going to... Actually, you know what? Since we're doing it for harmonics to some extent, maybe we should just do it for everything, because that way everything kind of makes sense. So, we're going to go ahead and just cut the line of code I just did. we'll keep it here for now. But it'll make sense what I'm trying to do here in a second. So, we're going to make one object really quickly. We're going to call this object weapons. And what this is going to do, I'm going to go ahead and make a sprite for this. And then I need to go ahead and... I think there's a setting you can fiddle with to make it go into the folder you want it to go to, but that is not my primary focus right now. Alright, so if we do this, I think there's a shape that we can, yeah, if we just do something like that, hit fill. There we go. And then I'm just gonna add a detail so I know where like the handle and all that is, so I just know top and bottom. I'm gonna, yeah, let me do one more thing, add one more layer to it. Actually, where's the deselect button? There we go. And then I do acknowledge it kind of looks like a cigarette. But, yeah, we'll make it look better at some other point. That's not really the point of this object. And I'm going to go ahead and do something with this collision mask here. Go ahead and put that like right here at the bottom center. So, yep, collision mask is fine, actually. Alright, so workspace, weapons, add event, and this will be a begin step event. X equals alright, we're going to give this thing two variables really quickly, and that will be the holder, that would be the X equals holder dot X, Y equals holder dot Y, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to creation event holder, and if I remember correctly, the command that you want to use for this, say holder equals holder. What I'm going to do here is I am going to go ahead and search this up with command okay, game maker manual. There we go. With, if I remember correctly how the with command works, Conditional operators, there we go. Operators, statement grouping, if then. Chapter 5 statements, there we go. If, else if. Switches are cases. Repeat loop. Here, give me 1 second. Just for the base item, let's just say that the holder is... Let's try it out on chorus. And I'm going to go ahead and go into the room here. And what we should see is it's going to slightly... It's going to follow him slightly behind, but it's still going to follow him. Yeah, if you notice that slight bobbing, that's why I did the begin statement. Go into OController. Alright. Then this one is going to be step by step. Let's do window mouse get X and Y, and this will give us the location and let's just say mouse X and mouse Y. And before you ask why this is on the step command and not the create, it's so we'll continue to update it. Yep, point and triangle, point and. I want to say Sean Spalding made a video on this, but. Yep, point direction. Point underscore direction. And that would be its own x, its own y. And then mouse x, mouse y. And this will be, let's see here, image underscore angle equals, and let's take a look at that. I think it's about 90 degrees off. Let's do minus 90 and see if that does it. Perfect. And if you look at chorus, if we were to move him to the other side, the sword's going to move with it. Right, chemistry system works. Now, weapons introduced, but let's go ahead and do something else here in the game rules setting. And this will be for our harmonics and other stuff. Global.turn count will always equal 0 upon creation. So with harmonics, how it's going to store it now is it's going to store this is the turn it was created, this is the amount of turns it has left, and this is the turn it will destroy itself. Now, what we need to do is we need to go to chorus's stuff right here. And what I'm going to, not chorus, excuse me, we need to go to our controller object. And let's go ahead and use our harmonics key, layer and global.turn equals 2. And then it will be global.turn count plus plus. That's going to add 1 to the current turn count. Yep, see that? And I can't move anymore. We do need to do a little bit of work on this enemy AI code. So let's go ahead and do some work on that so we know that this kind of thing can work. For enemies, I like the idea we kind of give them a timer. And we're going to do that off of our game rules object. So add event. This would be a step event. We're going to call this enemy turn switching. So if global dot turn count, turn equals 2, we're going to go ahead and add a timer onto here. Global dot turn timer equals 2. So let's do it at game runs around 30 frames, so let's do it at 60. Timer minus minus, and if global dot turn timer equals 0, global dot turn equals 1, global dot turn timer equals 60. So watch. So if we summon this, now we can move again. Let me go ahead and reset. I'm going to do something with the enemy right here. Equals 1, HSP equals 0, VSP. See, it wasn't resetting the HSP and VSP, so it's not going to throw them off the screen now. Now it's just not going to throw them off the screen. That's all that line of code was for. See, now they stop. We're going to add the enemy code so they actually attack later. But what I want to go ahead and do is I want to go ahead and do some edits to how it actually determines where the harmonics go. So we're going to actually change the... We're going to keep the harmonics code. But we're going to actually add a little thing on this case thing called a little key here, just so I know what to do. And this is going to be our player state key. Now, granted, this isn't going to include that massive state system I mentioned earlier. This is more so just going to be basic states, because I mentioned the switches earlier. And we can go back here and we can just go search case. In the number of situations you want to let instances perform different actions depending on a particular value, but when possible choices gets above 2 or 3, it's usually easier to just use the switch statement. See, switch player lives, player lives, draw sprite, draw sprite, draw sprite. So you see how this one, it draws different sprites based on the HP, for example. We'll work with that a little later, honestly. But what we should probably do is I'm going to look at a little object I made here. And we're going to add this to the player code, actually. Is we need to go to the center object really quickly, which is under UI. But we can better do this if we go right here in our controller code. And we're going to make a quick section right here, right above our harmonics. We're going to call this, actually let's go ahead and do a little more subdivision. But range check. And on creation, we're going to actually go ahead and do something with this too. Let's just do statistics. Range equals range. And then just going to go ahead and go visual. There we go. Usually what I do for that is I like to add a code that tells it to stop if it's within a certain range of the character. Because that way what it will usually do is it will just make the enemy back away or stay within a specific range. And that's usually better just because you don't get that weird jerky motion when it keeps trying to find the very center of how close it can be to the character. Alright, so range check. Get collision circle. Collision circle checks if there's something that collides the circle at some point. I'm going to check something. Because what I want to do is I want to be able to put a circle around the character. Let's see here. Actually, let's do something different. Key harmonics. All right, so let's just go with that with command applies to this. All right. Let me go ahead and do something. Direction equals O. Sprite get equals O weapons dot angle speed equals 30. So now if we do that same click, what it's going to do what I'm probably going to do is just tie it to like its own weapon kind of thing. So watch, if we do it like that. What? Oh, wait. Oh, wait, it'd be the other way. Yeah, you would need to add whatever that offset is. Like... And I'm going to do something on our harmonics really quickly. Owner equals owner, time equals time. So, steps. We actually don't need to add an owner variable, we can just add a team variable. And team equals 1. You can do it right here. So for timer, what we're going to do is if I'm going to add one massive one to this. If global dot turn equals team, and then else speed watch. So now we're going to go to the health commands and do one thing. There are a few instance commands instance place. I want to say that's the command. Yeah, we're going to have to work with instance IDs on this. All right. Our coal is the harmonic you just collided with, equals oh, it's just okay. Oh, we can just do this in the create command. Yep, now we do need to add one variable to the harmonics. There we go. And let's just go with har underscore speed. Har underscore speed. And let's set this to like 10. What the heck is... Alright. And for this, we're going to actually go into the harmonic code for it. It's a step. Speed equals har underscore speed. Alright, and weapon, we're going to do some edits with this. So let's do something. Actually, what might work for this, and I'm going to go ahead and do this before I forget to. I'm going to make a section here called required upon game start. It's going to have one here that is spawn required objects. Ooh, excuse me. Actually, let's do one thing with the turn timer really quickly. These are what we are going to do. Actually, what if we reversed how it worked? So, I'm going to go into harmonics here. Global term does not equal team. What I kind of wanted to do is shoot out like that and then just stay. But that way we can kind of give each a unique feel. And for some reason, monitor. What I'm probably going to do is I'm going to set it as a case kind of thing. But with the weapon, that's kind of going to be a master object. Probably going to use a set of switching cases for animation. I think for right now we're pretty good. Yeah, let's set speed equals car speed. There we go. Let's just remove that. I want to try something. Alright, give me 1 second. Alright, hope you enjoy getting reported for spam. Anyway, I think I'm actually gonna go ahead and save. I'm sorry, this virus has made me a lot more tired than I thought I would be. But on the bright side, here's what we got done today. That turn-based system, it's in. So, at least to some extent, we've made good progress. Just fix one glitch really quickly. Alright, anyway. Till next time, guys. Sharpsy signing off. We made good progress today.